Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Glad to have you here like always. In today's video, we are going to be talking about an old video that I posted a couple years back where I showed you guys how it is that I make a homemade hand feeding formula for baby birds. And as a result of this video, I have gotten countless messages through email and comments here on this YouTube channel asking me how to care for baby birds. Should I feed this to this species of bird? How do I care for this one? How do I keep it alive? Etc, etc. So in today's video, I'm going to try to go a little bit deeper as far as this subject goes on how to keep a baby bird alive once you find it. And I guess there are many factors that you have to keep in mind or consider when you're asking this question. And one of the biggest ones being, is this a wild bird? Here, this channel is dedicated to the conservation of exotic species of finches that are pretty much domesticated. These are not wild birds. These are birds that are used to being in cages. But a lot of the comments that I got on that video referred to wild birds that you were finding, and you wanted to know how to care for it, how to take care of it, how to feed it, what to feed it, etc. So one of the very first things that you have to keep in mind if you find a wild bird is that sometimes this is natural. It may be a normal thing to spot a small baby bird on the ground because as they mature and they reach a certain point in their life, they're going to want to jump the nest and they're going to want to start exploring, and it is normal for them not to be able to fly very good during those first few days. So they may spend a day or two on the ground hopping about, but mom and dad are very close by keeping an eye on them. They come down, they feed him and so on until he grabs the force or the strength necessary to start flying the right way and he learns how to fly. So just keep that in mind anytime that you find a baby bird. If it's fully feathered, most likely it jumped out the nest. Try to leave it alone. It will find its way. Mom and dad are very close by. Obviously, there's always a risk for predators, but that's how nature works. Now, there are cases where you may find a baby bird that is completely naked. And what I mean by naked, it means that it's a baby bird that does not have any feathers at all. And this may happen because it fell out of the nest. It may happen because one of the siblings pushed it out of the nest. It may have gotten attacked, the nest, by some sort of predator and it fell out, etc. and so on. So if you find one like this, then yes, most probably than not, this little guy, or most probably no, this little guy will need your help. Otherwise, it's going to end up dying if it is just left there. So one of the very first things that you can do if you find a baby bird like this is you have to try to figure out how you're going to keep it warm. That's number one. If you can't keep it warm, the baby bird will end up dying. Now, there are many different ways of keeping a baby bird warm, but one of the easiest ways, if you don't have a brooder, is to go ahead and use a baby wipe warmer. And I've used this in the past for small finch species like the ones that I breed here at the house, and it works wonderfully. It's a very easy way of keeping these baby birds warm enough to where they feel like it's almost like mom is sitting on top of them. And then what this is going to do is it's going to help warm up the chick. So as you feed it, that warmth will help digest the food that's in the crop, and it'll help it get it into the stomach, digest properly, and be ready for the next feeding. If you don't keep it warm, if you don't keep them at the right temperature, then what ends up happening is that they are unable to digest their food and they could end up dying due to that. Now, once you've figured out how you're going to keep this baby bird warm, you have to try to figure out what you're going to start feeding it. And this is going to greatly depend on the species of bird. And this has been probably the number one most asked question that I get as far as the old video that I posted on the homemade hand feeding formula. The homemade hand feeding formula that I posted a couple of years back is a very simple recipe. It includes hard-boiled egg and oats. You mix those two together with a little bit of water, you create almost like this pasty substance, and you start to feed the bird. Obviously, the egg is going to give the birds the protein and vitamins that it needs, and then the oats is going to go ahead and provide it with the grain that it needs to survive. Now, this recipe is going to work great for birds that eat grain or seeds. For example, you have pigeons, finches, cockatiels, any type of bird that will go ahead and eat seeds or grain. It's going to work for them. But you have to realize that there's a variety of other birds that eat a variety of other things. Like, for example, you have birds that are insectivorous. They're going to only eat insects. You have birds that are fruit eaters. They're only going to eat fruits. You even have some birds that, for example, are carnivorous. If you find a baby hawk, I mean, granted, I don't know how you would find a baby hawk, but just to give you an idea, there's a variety of different species of birds that eat different things, and they all don't have the same diet. So you have to try to figure out what type of bird do I have? What is it that they eat? What is in my area? So figure that out first and foremost, so that way you know exactly what you can go ahead and feed them. Now also keep in mind that this homemade hand feeding formula that I shared with you guys was shared as a last minute resort. This is a homemade hand feeding formula that you do to give it that first, second, and maybe third feeding to get this little guy going, because you found it, it's starving, it needs that nutrition right away. Birds have a very fast metabolism. So for us, it may be normal to go 2, 3, 4 hours without eating. For them, it's not. You can't make it go that long without eating, because they'll start to get weaker and weaker and weaker to the point where they're just not gonna open their mouth. So you find the baby bird, you go to your kitchen real quick, you hard boil an egg, you grab some oats, you mix it together, you give it that first feeding, and then what do? You try to go to the store and you try to find a commercial style hand feeding formula that suits that baby bird a little bit better. And the reason why you try to do this is because even though this homemade hand feeding formula has some vitamins in the egg, and it does have some substance like that protein and the stuff that it needs in order to keep going, it doesn't really have everything that this little bird needs in order to grow properly. So you want to always try to get a commercial style hand feeding formula that is well balanced with all the nutrients, vitamins, and minerals that this little bird is going to need in order to develop the right way. So try to keep that in mind, and I think that's something that I didn't really specify or made very clearly in that video that I made. Now I understand if you're in a completely different country, you're not here in the US, and it's very difficult to find commercial style hand feeding formulas. I understand. You have no other option than that formula. Guess what? It's going to be the best thing that you have to get that little bird from being small to completely fledging and eating on its own. So hopefully that does help out. But if you have the option of buying hand feeding formula, then go ahead and find a commercial style hand feeding formula and continue feeding it that throughout the course of its growth. Now, the final thing that you have to try to decide is when you go to buy your commercial style hand feeding formula, which brand are you gonna get? Is there one that's better than the other? Which one should you grab? And to be honest with you, look, it's all up to whatever's available within your area. I understand that certain brands may be available here, but they may not be available over there. Over the years, I've gone through a variety of different brands, and to be honest with you, they all work out great. I've encountered a couple problems here and there, but they have been very minimal. So when choosing your commercial style hand feeding formula, I would suggest just try to go to your local pet shop or a place where they sell these types of things in your area and see what's available. The one that I'm currently using at the moment is the brand Psittacus. And this is the one that I'm using to hand feed the baby parrots, but they also have this same company, one called Serinos, which is for wild birds, and it is for finches and other types of wild small birds, and it's the one that I use for all the baby finches. So if you guys are interested in trying out some of their hand feeding formula, go to the description box of this video, and in there you're gonna have the link to their website. And also, if you use the code word Paradise, they'll go ahead and give you guys a discount when you make your purchase. Another very common question that I was receiving as far as how to take care of these baby birds once you find them and while you're feeding them is how often do you have to feed them? Now, it's all going to greatly depend on the species of bird and the age of the bird, but generally speaking, I like to feed them every hour or every 2 hours depending on how old they are. The older they are, the longer they can go without feedings. The younger they are, the closer the feedings have to be. I usually start very early in the morning, around 7 a.m., and that continues all the way up to around 8 o'clock at night. Once it's nighttime, I do not feed them. So keep that in mind, because a lot of you guys were asking, well, what do I do overnight? Do I have to continuously feed them every hour or every 2 hours during the course of the night? No. Once 8 p.m. comes around, you stop feeding till the following morning, 7 a.m. And this is what would normally happen in the nest in the wild or with our captive birds. The parents feed from early morning all the way up to dusk. Once the sun sets, that's it. They're done feeding them. Another common question that I was getting is, do you have to give them water? The answer is no. You do not give baby birds any sort of water directly to the beak because you run the risk of them aspirating and dying. They're going to get all the moisture and all of the water that they need in order to survive from the hand feeding formula that you're mixing. That's why it's very important to make sure that the formula is mixed correctly. You want this to be kind of soupy. You want it to have enough water where it can be soft enough and easy for them to digest. And that way they get all of the nutrients that they need from the egg and the oats, but they also get the water that they need in order to digest this food properly and be able to stay healthy. So make sure that you don't make something that is too thick, because if it's too thick and it doesn't have enough water, they won't be able to digest it properly and it can get impacted inside of the crop to where it gets stuck and it becomes pretty much like a hard ball inside of their crop. So make sure that this is a soupy substance. If you buy a commercial style hand feeding formula, then usually on the back of this hand feeding formula, it's going to show you all the proper steps that you need to take, whether it's 2-to-1, 3-to-1, etc., on how many parts water to parts formula you're going to use, depending on the age of the baby bird. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope that this video helps clarify some of the questions that you may have had on the previous video that I posted in the past on what to do when you find a baby bird. Like always, if you liked it, remember to hit the thumbs up, share, subscribe, and so on. And we'll see each other in the next one. Bye.